So, for balancing reactions, this video is going to be about how to balance chemical reactions. I'm going to try to do the short and sweet version. So, chemical reactions, like this one shown, is basically, it has to follow the law of conservation of matter. So, the law of conservation of matter states you cannot create or destroy matter. It can just transform from one form to another. So, in this first reaction, we have nitrogen and hydrogen on both sides of the reaction arrow. We have to see that there are the same amounts represented. So what we're going to do to balance a reaction is we compare how many is on the left side with how many we have on the right. If they're not balanced, obviously these won't be, then we put a number in the blank that multiplies times the amount in the formula to make them equal. For example, if we're looking at the first one, we have 2 nitrogens on the reactant side. That little subscript means that we have 2. And then on the product side, we only have 1. So we go with the side that has less. We put a number in the blank that's going to multiply times 1 to give us 2. So that's going to be a 2 in this blank. So once we balance something, we just put a dot under it just so we know what we have already made balance. Okay? So we look at hydrogen. How many hydrogens on the left side? There are 2. On the right side, which is the product side, we have 3 in the formula. Once we put the 2 in front, it then multiplies times that, and that really gives us 6 hydrogens. So the side with less is over here on the reactant side. So what times 2 is also going to give us 6? A 3. That balances everything. So in this blank where we wrote nothing, we can just put a 1, and then we move on to the next thing. So I'm going over the ones we've done in class already because we're making this video for this one. So I'm going to switch colors. And we're going to move on to number 2. So in number 2, notice that there's 1 potassium on the left side, 1 potassium on the product side. So then moving to chlorine, we have 1 chlorine on the reactant side, 1 on the product side. So we don't put a dot under those because we didn't make those balanced. They just already were. Then we move to the oxygens. There's 3 on the left side, 2 on the right side. So we're going to need to make them balanced, but we can't put a coefficient here that's a whole number to make a 2 equal a 3. That's not going to work. So what we're going to do is go with a number they have in common. So we're going to go with 6. So what times 3 can equal 6? A 2. Okay, and then what times 2 equals 6? A 3. So all we did was balance out the oxygens. Now, because I did not go back and balance potassium and chloride, I'm going to do that next. So now how many potassiums do I have? In the formula there's 1, but it's times 2, so there's 2 potassiums. On the product side we only have 1, so we need to put a 2 in this blank to balance out the potassiums. Chlorine, there's 2 chlorines here, 2 chlorines there, that's balanced, and so number 2 is balanced. Alright, moving on to the next one. Alright, so I'm going to move on to this next one. In this next one, let's see, number 5. That one's going to be a little tricky. So looking at number 5, I want you to notice we have 1 silver on the reactant side and 1 on the product side. And then we could either look at NO3 together, like as one group, or we can separate the nitrogens and oxygens. So I'm going to choose to leave those together. So we only have 1 nitrate over here, and we know that because it doesn't have any parentheses around it. So there's 1 nitrate here, and over here we have 2 nitrates. So how do we make 2 nitrates over here? We put a 2 in this blank to balance out that whole thing. Again, you can separate the N's and O's. Can y'all let them in, please? Then we move on to magnesium. There's 1 magnesium here and here. And so we didn't have to do anything to balance it, so then I moved to chlorine. I have 2 chlorines on the reactant side and only 1 on the product side. So I'm going to need to put a 2 over here. Then I go back and I check everything that I didn't make balanced. So now I notice I have 2 silvers on the reactant side, 2 on the product side, so those are balanced. And then finally, this is going to be so loud on my video. And then magnesium, there's 1 of each, so everything is done. I put 1s in the blanks, and that's good. And then the last one I want to do is number 7, because that's a little tricky. 7, 8, and 9. By the way, 9 has a star beside it because it's going to be a little harder. You can actually skip that one if you want. So for number 7, we have 1 carbon on the reactant side, 1 on the product side. And then looking at hydrogen, I have 4 hydrogens here. On the product side, I only have 2. So I need to put a 2 in front of this in order to balance it. Okay, so I balanced out my H's. My C's I didn't have to do anything with. And then I look at my oxygen. Okay, for my oxygen, I need to notice that I have oxygens in both places. So notice that here I have 2 oxygens plus 2 more. So I have to take the total. That's 4 oxygens here. So I'm going to need a 2 in this blank to balance out my O's. So the only tricky thing is knowing that you have to combine these because they're both in the products. All right, so now this is balanced, and I just put 1s in these. All right, and that's it. And then you can just try the rest. There's a few that are a little bit harder, but you are welcome to ask me about those that you are struggling with.